Hi, everybody. I wanted to start today off with our broker tip of the week. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about early occupancy. So, basically, when a buyer is moving into a home prior to closing. And so, this is always a broker's or a BIC, principal broker's worst nightmare just because of the liability that's involved in it. There's a few ways that it's okay, but that's a few ways. Most of the time, it's not as good as it should be. We're seeing more and more of this now because of the VA loan assumptions. And so, with them taking 2 to 3 months to accomplish, we're moving in buyers prior to closing. And so, there's a few ways that this works. One is the pre occupancy addendum that's delivered to us, and that's a great form. We'll kind of go over that a little bit. And we also sometimes see lease agreements. And so, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between the two. Pre-occupancy addendum is basically the buyer's taking possession of the home. So they're basically moving in, they're getting their home insurance, they're doing all those things. Now it's really important when they fill that form out, we very we clarify what the buyers are going to be paying for. In the form, it may state that they're paying for the homeowners association, they're getting their insurance, they may be paying the portion of the property tax, and all those items. And I think they need to be labeled because what we're seeing now is some of these early occupancies and assumptions take longer than expected. So maybe a plan of maybe 2 to 3 weeks turns into 3 to 6 months. And by the end of that 3 to 6 months, the seller is saying, hey, you guys have lived in my house for this long. I know we agreed on a daily rate, but at the end of the time, maybe I felt that they should have been paying my property taxes. They should have been paying my homeowners association. So I think all of that is very important for us to clarify on the early occupancy agreement. You have the lease agreement, which you see not all the time, but you see it sometimes. This is a little bit different because it's basically a landlord tenant code. And so even though the buyer has moved in and they're in possession of the property, the seller is still a landlord. And so when it comes to repairs, it could be treated as a landlord. So they could be responsible for repairs that a normal landlord would be responsible, which they may not be responsible for if it was a early occupancy agreement. So those things are all to take into consideration. What we do is we like to only use our early occupancy after final loan approval, after money is deposited into escrow for the closing. And we do that because maybe they signed on Thursday, the buyers flew to the island on Friday, they're going to move in over the weekend, and everything is in escrow, and it's just a smooth process that way. We find that anything prior to that, and as the terms seem to stretch with loan assumptions, it's just creating a lot more liability than normally produced in an early occupancy. So some of those things that we're seeing, we want to keep you updated on it. Whenever you're doing an early occupancy agreement, it's really important that you're contacting your broker, having them double check it, triple check it, double checking it with your buyers, double checking it with your sellers, making sure that everyone's on the same page, clearly going over the terms of the charges. Because again, as things stretch out with loan assumptions, at the end of the day, you could have some unhappy sellers or unhappy buyers. So very important to spend some extra time on this form and do it correctly. And again, it's always best to do after loan approval or after money's in the bank or in escrow, so sense. But again, best to not do it at all. But thank you guys. You guys have a good week, and we'll give you another tip next week. Aloha.